The Poems and some Satires of Andrew Marvell, edited by Edward Wright, recorded for LibriVox.org. Section 1. Poems. Upon Appleton House. Note. The seat of Lord Fairfax, lying on the northern bank of the wharf, near to its junction with the Ouse. It was a picturesque brick mansion, with a centre containing a hall 50 yards long and 2 wings. It had been mainly built during the Civil War, and was just finished when Fairfax and Marvell arrived about the beginning of July, 1650. Return to text. To my Lord Fairfax. Within this sober frame expect work of no foreign architect, that unto caves the quarries drew, and forests did to pastures hew, who of his great design in pain did for a model vault his brain, whose columns should so high be raised to arch the brows that on them gazed. Why should, of all things, man unruled such unproportioned dwellings build? The beasts are by their dens expressed, and birds contrive an equal nest. The low-roofed tortoises do dwell in cases fit of tortoise shell. No creature loves an empty space, their bodies measure out their place. But he, superfluously spread, demands more room alive than dead, and in his hollow palace goes where winds, as he, themselves may lose. What need of all this marble crust to impark the wanton mote of dust, that thinks by breadth the world to unite, though the first builders failed in height? But all things are composed here like nature, orderly and near, in which we the dimensions find of that more sober age and mind, when larger sized men did stoop to enter at a narrow loop, as practising in doors so strait, to strain themselves through heaven's gate. And surely when the after age shall hither come in pilgrimage, these sacred places to adore, by Vere and Fairfax trod before, men will dispute how their extent within such dwarfish confines went, and some will smile at this, as well as Romulus's bee-like cell. Note on Vere and Fairfax. For several generations the Fairfaxes had fought and died under Sir Francis Vere and his brother Lord Vere, the first English generals in modern history who were great leaders in war. Our Civil War was conducted by the men of their school, chief among whom was Fairfax himself, who, after having served under Lord Vere in the Low Countries, had married his daughter. Lord Vere had no doubt visited his son-in-law and his daughter at Appleton. Return to text. Humility alone designs those short but admirable lines by which, ungirt and unconstrained, things greater are in less contained. Let others vainly strive to immure the circle in the quadrature, note, to square the circle. These holy mathematics can in every figure equal man. Yet thus the laden house does sweat, and scarce endures the master great. But where he comes, the swelling hall stirs, and the square grows spherical, more by his magnitude distressed than he is by its straightness pressed, and too officiously it slights that in itself which him delights. So honour better lowness bears than that unwonted greatness wears. Height with a certain grace does bend, but low things clownishly ascend. And yet what needs there here excuse, where everything does answer use, where neatness nothing can condemn, nor pride invent what to contemn? Note, invent, find out. A stately frontispiece of poor adorns without the open door. Daily new furniture of friends no less the rooms within commends. The house was built upon the place only as for a mark of grace, and for an inn, to entertain its lord a while, but not remain. Him Bishop's Hill or Denton may, or Bilborough, better hold than they. Note, Bishop's Hill and Denton were other Yorkshire residences of Lord Fairfax. But nature here hath been so free, as if she said, leave this to me. Art would more neatly have defaced what she had laid so sweetly waste, in fragrant gardens, shady woods, deep meadows, and transparent floods. While with slow eyes we this survey, and on each pleasant footstep stay, we opportunely may relate the progress of this house's fate. A nunnery first gave it birth. Note: Lord Fairfax's ancestor, Sir William Fairfax, was betrothed to a beautiful heiress, Isabel Thwaites, residing in the Cistercian nunnery of Appleton, under the guardianship of the prioress. Her guardian tried to induce her to become a nun, and her lover was not allowed to see her. Fairfax, however, obtained an order for Isabel's release, broke his way in, and, carrying her off to the neighbouring church of Bolton Percy, married her. This was in 1518. 24 years afterwards, on the dissolution of the monasteries, Appleton Nunnery was obtained by Sir William's sons, and out of its materials Nun Appleton House, or Appleton House, as Marvell calls it, was built. The ruins lay to the south of the mansion, near to the gardens and riverside meadows which Marvell proceeds to describe. Return to text. For virgin buildings oft brought forth, and all that neighbour ruin shows the quarries whence this dwelling rose. Near to this gloomy cloister's gates there dwelt the blooming virgin Thwaites, fair beyond measure, and an air which might deformity make fair. And oft she spent the summer suns discoursing with the subtle nuns, whence in these words one to her weaved, as 'twere by chance, thoughts long conceived. Within this holy leisure we live innocently, as you see. These walls restrain the world without, but hedge our liberty about. These bars enclose that wider den of those wild creatures called men. The cloister outward shuts its gates, and from us locks on them the grates. Here we in shining armour white, like virgin Amazons, do fight, and our chaste lamps we hourly trim, lest the great bridegroom find them dim. Our orient breaths perfumed are with incense of incessant prayer, and holy water of our tears most strangely our complexion clears. Not tears of grief, but such as those with which calm pleasure overflows, or pity, when we look on you that live without this happy vow. How should we grieve, that must be seen each one a spouse, and each a queen, and can in heaven hence behold our brighter robes and crowns of gold? When we have prayed all our beads, some one the holy legend reads, while all the rest with needles paint the face and graces of the saint. But what the linen can't receive, they in their lives do interweave. This work the saints best represents, that serves for altars' ornaments. But much it to our work would add, if here your hand, your face we had. By it we would our Lady touch, yet thus she you resembles much. Some of your features, as we sewed, through every shrine should be bestowed, and in one beauty we would take enough 1,000 saints to make. And, for I dare not quench the fire that me does for your good inspire, 'twere sacrilege a man to admit to holy things for heaven fit. I see the angels in a crown on you the lilies showering down, and round about you glory breaks, that something more than human speaks. All beauty, when at such a height, is so already consecrate. Fairfax I know, and long ere this have marked the youth and what he is. But can he such a rival seem, for whom you heaven should disesteem? Ah, no, and 'twould more honour prove he your devoter were than love. Note, for him to be your devotee rather than your lover. Here lived, beloved and obeyed, each one your sister, each your maid, and if our rule seem strictly penned, the rule itself to you shall bend. Our abbess too, now far in age, doth your succession near presage. How soft the yoke on us would lie, might such fair hands as yours it tie. Your voice, the sweetest of the choir, shall draw heaven nearer, raise us higher. And your example, if our head, will soon us to perfection lead. Those virtues to us all so dear will straight grow sanctity when here, and that once sprung, increase so fast, till miracles it work at last. Nor is our order yet so nice delight to banish us of vice. Here pleasure piety doth meet, one perfecting the other sweet. So through the mortal fruit we boil the sugar's uncorrupting oil, and that which perished while we pull is thus preserved, clear and full. For such indeed are all our arts, still handling nature's finest parts. Flowers dress the altars, for the close the sea-born amber we compose. Balms for the grieved we draw, and pastes we mould as baits for curious tastes. What need is here of man, unless these as sweet sins we should confess? Each night among us to your side appoint a fresh and virgin bride, whom, if our Lord at midnight find, yet neither should be left behind, where you may lie as chaste in bed as pearls together billeted, all night embracing arm and arm, like crystal pure with cotton warm. But what is this to all the store of joys you see, and may make more? Try but a while, if you be wise. The trial neither costs nor ties. Now, Fairfax, seek her promised faith. Religion that dispensed hath, which she henceforward does begin. The nun's smooth tongue has sucked her in. Note, she now enters upon her religious life, which annuls those vows she plighted to Fairfax. Oft, though he knew it was in vain, yet would he valiantly complain. Is this, that sanctity so great, an art by which you finely cheat? Hypocrite witches, hence avaunt, who, though in prison, yet enchant. Death only can such thieves make fast as rob, though in a dungeon cast. Were there but, when this house was made, one stone that a just hand had laid, it must have fallen upon her head, who first thee from thy faith misled. And yet, how well soever meant, with them 'twould soon grow fraudulent. For like themselves they alter all, and vice infects the very wall. But sure those buildings last not long, founded by folly, kept by wrong. I know what fruit their gardens yield, when they it think by night concealed. Fly from their vices, 'tis thy state, note estate, not thee that they would consecrate. Fly from their ruin. How I fear, though guiltless, lest thou perish there. What should he do? He would respect religion, but not right neglect. For first religion taught him right, and dazzled not, but cleared his sight. Sometimes, resolved, his sword he draws, but reverenceth then the laws. For justice still that courage led, first from a judge, then soldier bred. Note, Sir William Fairfax's father was a judge, and his grandfather, Sir Guy Fairfax, was Lord Chief Justice of King's Bench in Henry VII's reign. Small honour would be in the storm. The court him grants the lawful form, which licensed either peace or force to hinder the unjust divorce. Yet still the nuns his right debarred, standing upon their holy guard. Ill-counselled women, do you know whom you resist, or what you do? Is not this he whose offspring fierce shall fight through all the universe, and with successive valour try France, Poland, either Germany, till one as long since prophesied his horse through conquered Britain ride? Yet against fate his spouse they kept, and the great race would intercept. Some to the breach against their foes their wooden saints in vain oppose. Another, bolder, stands at push with their old holy water brush, while the disjointed abbess threads the jingling chain-shot of her beads. But their loudest cannon were their lungs, and sharpest weapons were their tongues. But waving these aside like flies, young Fairfax through the wall does rise. Then th' unfrequented vault appeared, and superstitions vainly feared. The relics false was set to view, only the jewels there were true. But truly bright and holy thwaits that weeping at the altar waits. But the glad youth away her bears, and to the nuns bequeaths her tears, who guiltily their prize bemoan, like gypsies that a child have stolen. Thenceforth, as when the enchantment ends, the castle vanishes or rends, the wasting cloister with the rest was in one instant dispossessed. At the demolishing, this seat to Fairfax fell, as by a cheat. And what both nuns and founders willed, is likely better thus fulfilled. For if the Virgin proved not theirs, the cloister yet remained hers. Though many a nun there made her vow, 'twas no religious house till now. From that blest bed the hero came, whom France and Poland yet does fame. Note: Sir Clement R. Markham, Dr. Grosart, and Mr. G.A. Aitken think that Lord Fairfax is here referred to. The alternative, perhaps, is the General's grandfather, Thomas Fairfax, who was knighted for gallant conduct before Rouen by Lord Essex, and served like Uncle Toby, who also had a taste for military gardening in the Low Countries and elsewhere. Queen Elizabeth afterwards appointed him to a diplomatic post. When two of the old soldiers' brave boys who died fighting in the Palatinate were campaigning in Holland, he crossed the seas and shared their bed of straw. Deeply disappointed by the peaceful disposition of Ferdinando, the heir, he lived to see the old spirit of his race revive in Black Tom, but died before the general distinguished himself. Return to text. From that blessed bed the hero came, whom France and Poland yet does fame, who, when retired here to peace, his warlike studies could not cease, but laid these gardens out, in sport, in the just figure of a fort, and with 5 bastions it did fence, as aiming one for every sense. When in the east the morning ray hangs out the colours of the day, the bee through these known alleys hums, beating the Dian, note the reveille, with its drums. Then flowers their drowsy eyelids raise, their silken ensigns each displays, and dries its pan, yet dank with dew, and fills its flask with odours new. Note the pan of the musket-lock, and the flask of the powder-horn. Return to text. These, as their governor goes by, in fragrant volleys they let fly, and, to salute their governess, again as great a charge they press. None for the virgin nymph, for she seems, like the flowers, a flower to be, and think so still, though not compare, note, comparable with her, with breath so sweet or cheek so fair. Well shot, ye firemen! Oh, how sweet and round, note direct, your equal fires do meet, whose shrill report no ear can tell, but echoes to the eye and smell. See how the flowers, as at parade, under their colours stand displayed. Each regiment in order grows, that of the tulip, pink, and rose. But when the vigilant patrol of stars walks round about the pole, their leaves that to the stalks are curled seem to their staves the ensigns furled. Then in some flower's beloved hut each bee as sentinel is shut, and sleeps so too, but if once stirred, she runs you through, nor asks the word. O thou, that dear and happy isle, the garden of the world erewhile, thou paradise of the 4 seas, which heaven planted us to please, but to exclude the world did guard with watery, if not flaming sword, what luckless apple did we taste, to make us mortal and thee waste? Unhappy! Shall we never more that sweet militia restore, when gardens only had their towers, and all the garrisons were flowers? When roses only arms might bear, and men did rosy garlands wear? Tulips, in several colours barred, were then the Switzers of our guard. The gardener had the soldier's place, and his more gentle forts did trace. The nursery of all things green was then the only magazine. The winter quarters were the stoves, note hothouses, where he the tender plants removes. But war all this doth overgrow, we ordnance plant and powder sow. And yet there walks one on the sod, who, had it pleased him and God, might once have made our gardens spring fresh as his own, and flourishing. But he preferred to the Cinque-Ports. Note, on resigning the Commander-in-Chief, Fairfax retired from Warmer Castle, the residence of the Warden of the Cinque-Ports. But he preferred to the Cinque-Ports these 5 imaginary forts, and in those half-dry trenches spanned power which the ocean might command. For he did with his utmost skill ambition weed, but conscience till. Conscience, that heaven-nursed plant, which most our earthly gardens want. A prickling leaf it bears, and such as that which shrinks at every touch, but flowers eternal and divine, that in the crowns of saints do shine. The sight does from those bastions ply th' invisible artillery, and at proud Cawood Castle seems to point the battery of his beams. Note, Cawood Castle, the ancient residence of the Archbishop of York, lying a few miles to the south of Nunn Appleton. The garrison in 1643 had attempted to cut off Fairfax's retreat after the Battle of Atherton Moor, but although they wounded the general himself, they were beaten back into the castle, which in 1646 was dismantled by the parliamentary forces. Return to text. The sight does from these bastions ply th' invisible artillery, and at proud Cawood Castle seems to point the battery of its beams, as if it quarrelled, note, censured, in the seat th' ambition of its prelate great. But o'er the meads below it plays, or innocently seems to gaze. And now to the abyss I pass of that unfathomable grass, where men like grasshoppers appear, but grasshoppers are giants there. They in their squeaking laugh contemn us as we walk more low than them, and from the precipices tall of the green spires to us to call. To see men through this meadow dive, we wonder how they rise alive, as under water none does know whether he fall through it or go. But as the mariners that sound and show upon their lead the ground, they bring up flowers so to be seen, and prove they've at the bottom been. No scene that turns with engine strange does oftener than these meadows change. For when the sun the grass hath vexed, the tawny mowers enter next, who seem like Israelites to be walking on foot through a green sea. To them the grassy deeps divide, and crowd a lane to either side. With whistling scythe and elbow strong, these massacre the grass along, while one, unknowing, carves the rail, note, the landrail or corncrake, whose yet unfeathered quills her fail. The edge all bloody from its breast he draws, and does his stroke to test, fearing the flesh, untimely mowed, to him a fate as black forebode. But bloody Thestylus, that waits to bring the mowing camp their cates, greedy as kite has trussed it up, and forthwith means on it to sup. When on another quick she lights, and cries, "He called us Israelites, but now, to make his saying true, rails rain for quails, for manna dew." Unhappy birds, what does it boot to build below the grass's root, when lowness is unsafe as height, and chance o'ertakes what scapeth spite? And now your orphan parents' call sounds your untimely funeral. Death trumpets creak in such a note, and 'tis the surdine in their throat, note, surdine, a hoarse-sounding trumpet. Or sooner hatch or higher build, the mower now commands the field, in whose new traverse seemeth wrought a camp of battle newly fought, where as the meads with hay, the plain lies quilted o'er with bodies slain. The women that with forks it fling do represent the pillaging. And now the careless victors play, dancing the triumphs of the hay, where every mower's wholesome heat smells like an Alexander's sweat. Note, compare North's Plutarch. All the apparel he wore next unto his body took thereof a passing delightful savour, as it had been perfumed. their females fragrant as the mead which they in fairy circles tread. When at their dance's end they kiss, their new-made hay not sweeter is. When after this 'tis piled in cocks, like a calm sea it shows the rocks. We, wondering in the river near, how boats among them safely steer, or, like the desert Memphis sand, short pyramids of hay do stand, and such the Roman camps do rise in hills for soldiers' obsequies. This scene, again withdrawing, brings a new and empty face of things, a levelled space, as smooth and plain as cloths for lilies stretched to stain. The world, when first created, sure was such a table rase and pure, or rather such is the Toril, ere the bulls enter at Madril. Note, the Toril is the arena at Madrid. Return to text. For to this naked equal flat, which levellers take pattern at, note, levellers, the democratic party among the parliamentary forces who mutinied and were defeated by Fairfax. Return to text. The villagers in common chase their cattle, which it closer raise, and what below the scythe increased is pinched yet nearer by the beast. Such in the painted world appeared Davenant with the universal herd. Note, a reference to Davenant's description of paintings of the 6 days' creation in Gondibert, Canto 6. Then straight an universal herd appears, first gazing on each other in the shade, wondering with levelled eyes and lifted ears, etc. All the poets of the age had their jest at the poet laureate's work. Return to text. They seem within the polished grass a landscape drawn in looking-glass, and shrunk in the huge pasture show as spots so shaped on faces do. Such fleas, ere they approach the eye, in multiplying glasses lie. They feed so wide, so slowly move, as constellations do above. Then, to conclude these pleasant acts, Denton sets ope its cataracts, and makes the meadow truly be what it but seemed before, a sea. For, jealous of its lord's long stay, it tries to invite him thus away. The river in itself is drowned, and isles the astonished cattle round. Let others tell the paradox, how eels now bellow in the ox, how horses at their tails do kick, turned as they hang to leeches quick. Note, it was thought that the hairs of a horse's tail, when put in water, turned to eels. How boats can over bridges sail, and fishes do the stables scale. How salmons trespassing are found, and pikes are taken in the pound. But I, retiring from the flood, note, the low meadows, or ings, along the wharf were covered at flood, and Marvell now turns to the noble park with splendid oak trees extending northward from the front of Appleton House. Take sanctuary in the wood, and while it lasts, myself embark in this yet green, yet growing ark, where the first carpenter might best fit timber for his keel have pressed, and where all creatures might have shares, although in armies, not in pairs. The double wood of ancient stalks, linked in, so thick an union locks, it like 2 pedigrees appears. On one hand Fairfax, th'other Vere, of whom, though many fell in war, yet more to heaven shooting are, and as they nature's cradle decked, will in green age her hearse expect. When first the eye this forest sees, it seems indeed as wood, not trees, as if their neighbourhood so old to one great trunk them all did mould. There the huge bulk takes place, as meant to thrust up a 5th element, and stretches still so closely wedged, as if the night within were hedged. Dark all without it knits, within it opens passable and thin, and in as loose an order grows as the Corinthian porticos. The arching boughs unite between the columns of the temple green, and underneath the winged choirs echo about their tuned fires. The nightingale does here make choice to sing the trials of her voice. Low shrub she sits in, and adorns with music high the squatted thorns. But highest oaks stoop down to hear, and listening elders prick the ear. The thorn, lest it should hurt her, draws within the skin its shrunken claws. But I have for my music found a sadder, yet more pleasing sound, the stock-doves, whose fair necks are graced with nuptial rings, their ensigns chaste. Yet always, for some cause unknown, sad pair, unto the elms they moan. Oh, why should such a couple mourn, that in so equal flames do burn? Then, as I careless on the bed of gelid strawberries do tread, and through the hazels thick espy the hatching throstle's shining eye, the heron, from the ash's top, the eldest of its young lets drop, as if it, stork-like, did pretend that tribute to its lord to send. But most the Hewel's wonders are, who here has the Holtfelster's care. Note, the green woodpecker or yaffle has the woodcutter's care. But most the Hewel's wonders are, who here has the Holtfelster's care. He walks still upright from the root, measuring the timber with his foot, and all the way to keep it clean doth from the bark the wood-moths glean. He with his beak examines well which fit to stand and which to fell. The good he numbers up, and hacks as if he marked them with his axe. But where he, tinkling with his beak, doth find the hollow oak to speak, that for his building he designs, and through the tainted side he mines. Who could have thought the tallest oak should fall by such a feeble stroke? Nor would it, had the tree not fed a traitor worm within it bred. As first our flesh, corrupt within, tempts impotent and bashful sin, and yet that worm triumphs not long, but serves to feed the Hewel's young, while the oak seems to fall content, viewing the treason's punishment. Thus I, easy philosopher, among the birds and trees confer, and little now to make me once, or of the fowls, or of the plants. Note, little now is lacking to make me either bird or plant. Give me but wings as they, and I straight floating on the air shall fly, or turn me but, and you shall see I was but an inverted tree. Already I begin to call in their most learned original, and where I language want, my signs the bird upon the bough divines, and more attentive there doth sit than if she were with lime twigs knit. No leaf does tremble in the wind, which I returning cannot find. Out of these scattered Sibyl's leaves strange prophecies my fancy weaves, and in one history consumes, like Mexique paintings, all the plumes. Note, designs made of feathers. What Rome, Greece, Palestine e'er said, I in this light mosaic read. Thrice happy he who, not mistook, hath read in nature's mystic book. And see how chance's better wit could with a mask my studies hit. Note, see how the better wit of happy chance could provide me with masking habit to match my studies. The oak leaves me embroider all, between which caterpillars crawl, and ivy with familiar trails me licks and clasps and curls and hails. Under this antic cope I move like some great prelate of the grove. Then, languishing with ease, I toss on pallets swoln of velvet moss, while the wind, cooling through the boughs, flatters with air my panting brows. Thanks for my rest, ye mossy banks, and unto you, cool zephyrs, thanks, who, as my hair, my thoughts too shed, and winnow from the chaff my head. How safe, methinks, and strong behind these trees have I encamped my mind, where beauty, aiming at the heart, bends in some tree its useless dart, and where the world no certain shot can make, or me it toucheth not, but I on it securely play, and gall its horsemen all the day. Bind me, ye woodbines, in your twines, curl me about, ye gadding vines, and oh, so close your circles lace, that I may never leave this place. But lest your fetters prove too weak, ere I your silken bondage break, do you, O brambles, chain me too, and, courteous briars, nail me through. Here in the morning tie my chain, where the two woods have made a lane, while like a guard on either side the trees before the Lord divide. This like a long and equal thread betwixt two labyrinths doth lead, but where the floods did lately drown, there at the evening stake me down. For now the waves are fall'n and dried, and now the meadows fresher dyed, whose grass, with moister colour dashed, seems as green silks but newly washed. No serpent new nor crocodile remains behind our little Nile. Note, the Wharf River. Compare Antony and Cleopatra 2:7. Your serpent of Egypt is bred now of your mud by the operation of your sun. So is your crocodile. Return to text. Unless itself you will mistake among these meads the only snake. See in what wanton harmless folds it everywhere the meadow holds, and its yet muddy bank doth lick, till as a crystal mirror slick, where all things gaze themselves, and doubt if they be in it or without. And for his shade, which therein shines, Narcissus-like the sun too pines. Oh, what a pleasure 'tis to hedge my temples here with leafy sedge, abandoning my lazy side, stretched as a bank unto the tide, or to suspend my sliding foot on the osiers' undermined root, and in its branches tough to hang, while at my lines the fishes twang. But now away my hooks, my quills, and angles, idle utensils. The young Maria walks to-night. Note, Lord Fairfax's daughter Mary, afterwards Duchess of Buckingham. Marvell was then acting as her tutor. Neglected by her husband, and yet by rank the first lady of Charles II's reign, she became the intimate friend of the Queen, and was esteemed the most virtuous and pious woman in the corrupt court of that age. Hide, trifling youth, thy pleasures slight. 'Twere shame that such judicious eyes should with such toys a man surprise. She that already is the law of all her sex, her age's awe. See how loose nature, in respect to her, itself doth recollect, and everything so whisht and fine starts forthwith into its bona mine. Note, puts on its good looks. The sun himself, of her aware, seems to descend with greater care, and, lest she see him go to bed, in blushing clouds conceals his head. So when the shadows, laid asleep, from underneath these banks do creep, and on the river as it flows, with ebon shuts begin to close. Note, ebon shuts, ebony shutters. The modest halcyon comes in sight, flying betwixt the day and night, and such an horror calm and dumb admiring nature does benumb. The viscous air, where'er she fly, follows and sucks her azure dye. The jellying stream compacts below, if it might fix her shadow so. The stupid fishes hang as plain as flies in crystal of Vertaine, and men the silent scene assist, charmed with the sapphire-winged mist. Maria such and so doth hush the world, and through the evening rush. No new-born comet such a train draws through the sky, nor star new slain. For straight those giddy rockets fail, which from the putrid earth exhale, but by her flames, in heaven tried, nature is wholly vitrified. 'Tis she that to these gardens gave that wondrous beauty which they have. She straightness on the woods bestows, to her the meadow sweetness owes. Nothing could make the river be so crystal pure, but only she. She, yet more pure, sweet, straight, and fair than gardens, woods, meads, rivers are. Therefore, what first she on them spent, they gratefully again present. The meadow, carpets where to tread, the garden, flowers to crown her head, and for a glass, the limpid brook where she may all her beauties look. But since she would not have them seen, the wood about her draws a screen. For she, to higher beauties raised, disdains to be for lesser praised. She counts her beauty to converse in all the languages as hers, nor yet in those herself employs, but for the wisdom, not the noise. nor yet that wisdom would affect, but as 'tis heaven's dialect. Blessed nymph, that couldst so soon prevent those trains by youth against thee meant, note, anticipate those stratagems by youth against thee meant. Return to text. Tears, watery shot that pierce the mind, and sighs, love's cannon charged with wind, true praise that breaks through all defence, and feigned complying innocence. But knowing where this ambush lay, she 'scaped the safe but roughest way. This 'tis to have been from the first in a domestic heaven nursed, under the discipline severe of Fairfax and the starry Vere. Note, the shield of the Veres was charged in the first quarter with a star argent, where not one object can come nigh, but pure and spotless as the eye, and goodness doth itself entail, note, descend as an inheritance, on females if there want a male. Go now, fond sex, that on your face do all your useless study place, nor once advice your brows dare knit, lest the smooth forehead wrinkled sit. Yet your own face shall let you grin, thorough the black bag of your skin, when knowledge only could have filled, and virtue all those furrows tilled. Hence she with graces more divine supplies, beyond her sex, the line, and like a sprig of mistletoe on the fair Phaeacian oak does grow, whence for some universal good the priest shall cut the sacred bud, while her glad parents most rejoice, and make their destiny their choice. Meantime, ye fields, springs, bushes, flowers, where yet she leads her studious hours, till fate her worthily translates, and find a Fairfax for our thwaites, employ the means you have by her, and in your kind yourselves prefer, that as all virgins she precedes, so you all woods, streams, garlands, meads. For you the Salian Tempe's seat shall now be scorned as obsolete, Aranjuez as less disdained, the Bel Retiro as constrained. Note, Aranjuez, a royal palace famous for the beauty of its gardens 30 miles from Madrid, Buen Retiro, another palace near Madrid. Return to text. But name not the Idalian grove, for 'twas the seat of wanton love, much less the dead Elysian fields, yet nor to them your beauty yields. 'Tis not as once appeared the world, a heap confused, together hurled, all negligently overthrown, gulfs, deserts, precipices, stone. Your lesser world contains the same, but in more decent order, tame. You, heaven's centre, nature's lap, and paradise's only map. And now the salmon fishers moist their leathern boats begin to hoist, and, like Antipodes in shoes, have shot their heads in their canoes. How tortoise-like, but not so slow, these rational amphibii go. Let's in, for the dark hemisphere does now like one of them appear. End of Upon Appleton House. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, recorded by Thomas Copeland.